Welcome back. The Ministry of Information and Communication Technology has announced that the Access to Information Act No. 8 of 2022 regulations has been endorsed by the National Assembly on August 6, 2024. This is a significant step towards promoting transparency and accountability as it establishes an independent office of the Information Commissioner to facilitate public access to information. Minister Emma Theofelus emphasized the Act's role in empowering citizens and enhancing governance. Now, to speak further on this, we have invited Mr. Frans Nghitila, Director for Print Media Affairs at the Ministry of Information, Communication and Technology. Mr. Nghitila, good evening and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, colleagues, and thank you for inviting us.
Mr. Nghitila, what motivated the Ministry to prioritize the endorsement of the ATI regulations now?
Well, I wouldn't say now, because this has been a process for which we have been longing for. Mind you, since the introduction of Harambee Prosperity 1 and eventually 2, Pillar 1 of that document require us Pillar 1 of that document talks to issues of effective governance or good governance, for which transparency and accountability were sub-pillars. And we as a ministry were required to come up with tools and mechanisms how to reinforce that pillar. And that's when we started the process of drafting the Access to Information bill, which eventually became a law in 2022. Now we call it Access to Information Act 8 of 2022. In other words, or in short, the essence of this act is to promote a good governance, transparency and accountability. And this is making Namibia to live up with all other African countries, because this act is in line with and it's modeled in accordance with the African model law that require us to ensure that we live up to those expectations.
Once this act comes into effect, an office of the Information Commissioner will be established. So how will this establishment impact citizens' access to information?
Well, very much. If you look at the whole arrangement of the act, it has got about 10 chapters or parts, which talks to various disciplines and objects. What our people should expect is the right to have access to public informations in a way and in a format that's easily retrievable and understandable in their own vernaculars.
Right.
What it means is in 2019 or 2020, when we hosted the World Press Freedom Day, Namibia again made a history when we adopted what we call Windhoek 30+ declaration. That declaration in it talks about right to access to information as a public goods. In other words, it's a right in terms of UN declarations, particularly Article 19. It requires public entities to really proactively provide information for our people to be able to improve their lives and livelihoods. Yes.
Once this office of the Information Commissioner that I mentioned earlier would be established, what would be the responsibilities of the Information Commissioner and the Deputy Information Commissioner?
They are responsible in terms of the law is to ensure the full implementation of the Act. Part of it is they are like adjudicators. Assuming, let's say, you go to public entity A or B, you are seeking certain information and people are refusing those information and they fall in the category of information that should be disseminated to the public for our people or as public goods. Then they have the power to enforce the act even give ultimatums to those entities. In other words, is to enforce and to adjudicate, measure around, check whether the information so requested falls in the category or is just a fancy story that you want to ask. So there are parameters for which we have to abide to.
On that note, what measures would then be implemented to ensure compliance with the ATI Act among public and private entities?
Well, like for example, Part 4 put quite very, very clearly defined measures, what we have to do, more so as public entities and private entities. They are encouraged to store, pack, and information in a way that is easily retrievable and in a format that is accessible to our people. So in other words, they will be required now, once they are established, really they will need to intensify public education and awareness so that people know their rights within the parameter and that people know what to do whenever is necessary and needed. Yeah.
Mr. Nghitila, how does the Namibian Access to Information Act align with international best practices in access to information?
Well, you know, as a country, we are better off. And I think we are doing the best, and we are one of the few among nations. You recall that we are always occupying position #1 in terms of freest press in Africa, and also very moderate positions globally. That is because of our legal and political environment. In other words, this act is just one of the legal instruments that adds to what already is existing. And mind you, when you talk about Harambee, for which I have stated earlier, it's just an additional measure or tool to complement our NDPs. People are now busy finalizing NDP 6. And these NDPs are measurements to measure our progress towards the achievement of our vision, that is Vision 2030. In other words, Namibia is heading towards that road, and we are quite happy that at least we are making good progress.
Do you foresee any challenges with implementing this act, and if so, how would they be addressed?
Well, not really. Well, one of the challenge could be our conservative thinking and approach to issues. There are those that are already talking about, yeah, once this act comes, it will expose our privacy. It's not like that. There are parameters, as I said earlier. The act is meant to encourage public entities and private bodies to make information freely available to our people, because a nation that has got access to information, and a nation that is empowered in terms of information, this is a nation in the move. But once you don't know what's next or what to do whenever what happens, then you are doomed. There are countries we have seen, they don't enjoy the kind of freedom and the kind of expression that we have, that are guided under Chapter 3 of our Constitution. And also, when you look at the Windhoek 30+ declaration that I have alluded to, part of it is to encourage governments to create conducive environment for people to really ascribe to free society and free thinking. Only then we will be able to develop as a free society in line with the rest of the world. Yeah.
The public, of course, is an important stakeholder in all of this. So how will they be educated about their rights under the ATI Act?
Well, as a ministry, we continue to engage our strategic partners, including civil societies, even those that are in, particularly those in the media fraternity. You know, as a country, we ascribe ourselves to democratic principles, and media is a fourth estate. When you talk about fourth estate, you're referring to the arrangements of the 3 branches of government the executive, the parliament, that is now the legislative, and of course the judiciary. Then each one's supposed to check. It's a check and balance. Those are three arrangements. That's why then now, when you have the three, who is the fourth? It's now the media. That's supposed now to see how the three are exercising their power within the prescribed constitutional arrangements. So in other words, for our people to know, it's a continuous engagement and encouragement in areas of information dissemination and also public education. And I think that's a challenge that I foresee, to ensure that our people get out of this cocoon, this conservative thinking. It's a privileged information. Why do you want this information? When you know that information really is not yours, it's for the public. And that's the challenge I foresee. But knowing our people and knowing our society, I don't really think that is insurmountable. Yes.
Well, your final remarks on the matter this evening, sir?
For me is that the regulations are now out. They were passed by Parliament, and that has been a challenge because it's not that we were not ready, but they were always overtaken by events. Remember when we just lost our late president, it has also affected the progress. That's why earlier on I say, it's not about now.
Right.
We have always been serious about having this thing passed through. Now that the regulations are out, we have now started already, as from yesterday, on the next process, and that is now to ensure that these regulations are properly aligned to the main act and that they are gazetted. And the process to gazette sometimes takes 2 to 3 to 4 months. So we are aware of that, and we are here to ensure that before that lapsing time, at least we are ready to ensure that the Office of the Information Commissioner and the Deputy, it's well established and functioning. And that's our next priority, and we have already started that process. In fact, it's good also to indicate that we have already made budgetary provision. And it's just a matter of how fast.
Yeah.
And whoever is next, to attend to the process, it's how they will handle the process. But we are ready.
Mr. Frans Nghitila, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it. If you've only just joined us, you're watching the Daily Roundup with Nina. We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, our conversations this evening continues.